The hangar fell silent the moment she walked in. Silent enough that you could hear the sand shifting under her boots. Every Marine turned to stare at the ink curling down her arm, a dark, coiled serpent wrapped in symbols no one recognized. Someone snickered. Someone whispered. Someone said she didn't belong here. She ignored them, but everything changed when the colonel stepped forward and slowly took off his jacket, revealing the exact same tattoo, only bigger, older, carved by war and pain. And in that moment, every Marine realized they had just laughed at the wrong person. But the story of how they got here, that began long before the hangar doors opened that morning. THE2OTYEDNDUNDR Sergeant Maya Torres had spent 10 years earning her place in a world where every mistake was judged twice as hard because she was a woman. She never complained, never asked for favors. She carried her weight, carried her team, and carried her scars, most of them invisible, except one. The tattoo, a serpent coiled around a dagger, wrapped in geometric lines that almost looked ancient. It started high on her shoulder and ended at her wrist, carved in black ink that seemed alive under sunlight. She got it after Afghanistan, after the night she almost didn't make it home. It wasn't decoration, it was survival, but none of the new recruits knew that. On her first day at Camp Walters, the murmurs began. Who does she think she is? That tattoo looks like she wants attention. She's trying too hard. Maya heard every word, but she didn't react. She had promised herself long ago that she would never explain her pain to people who hadn't earned the right to hear it. Among the young Marines was Private Dalton. A loud, overconfident kid who had never seen real fire but talked as if he'd walked out of a war movie. He nudged his friend as Maya walked past. Bet she got that tattoo last week on leave. He laughed, trying to look tough. Maya paused. She didn't turn around. She didn't need to. Her voice carried enough steel to freeze the room. Private, worry less about my ink and more about tightening your boots. I can see the gap from here. The recruits went silent, but the whispers continued the next days, spreading like smoke. Maya kept performing, training harder than all of them, pushing herself past exhaustion. Still, the mocking eyes followed her. But Maya wasn't worried about them. She was worried about one thing only: the inspection tomorrow. Because tomorrow, she had to face Colonel Reeves, the man whose reputation stretched across bases like a shadow, the man who trained legends, the man who never smiled, and the man she once saved, without him ever knowing. When the inspection morning arrived, Maya stood inside the equipment hangar with her platoon. Sunlight poured through the high windows, painting gold on metal and dust. Tools and rifle parts lay across the tables. Engines hummed quietly. The recruits lined up, restless. Dalton whispered again, "Bet the colonel's gonna tear her apart." But as she stood there, jaw locked, heart steady, Maya didn't think about Dalton. She thought about Afghanistan. About the explosion. About the 2 soldiers she dragged from burning metal. About the colonel who lost consciousness before he ever saw her face. He never knew who pulled him out, but she remembered every detail. The colonel entered, tall, cold, eyes sharp enough to cut air. Marine straightened instantly. His gaze landed on her. He stopped walking. Everyone felt the tension shift. "Sergeant Torres," he said, his voice calm but heavy. "Step forward." Her heartbeat thudded. She obeyed. Then his eyes dropped to her arm, to the tattoo. The hangar filled with muffled snickers. Someone whispered too loudly, "Here it comes." Maya braced herself, but the colonel didn't shout, didn't scold, didn't question. Instead, for the first time in his career, he slowly unbuttoned his jacket. Every Marine froze, and when the jacket slid off, the hangar erupted in gasps. Because there, carved across his arm in older, rougher lines, was the exact same tattoo. And silence swallowed the room as the colonel stood in front of Maya, his arm bare, revealing a story only a few in the world could understand. Private Dalton stepped back, his face drained of color. The recruits who laughed suddenly looked like children who had kicked open a door they should have never touched. Colonel Reeves turned to the platoon. "This tattoo," he began, voice echoing through the hangar, "is not decoration. It is not rebellion. It is not something you mock." His eyes swept across the young Marines, cold, sharp, unblinking. "This tattoo is earned." He looked at Maya again, and for the first time, his voice softened. Only 12 Marines in the last 40 years have carried this mark. Each of them received it after saving lives under circumstances most of you cannot imagine. A gasp rippled through the room. The colonel continued. This mark is given only to those who choose others over themselves when everything around them is on fire. Maya's throat tightened. He still didn't know it was her, the one who saved him. But life has a way of revealing truth at the right moment. He stepped closer. Sergeant Torres, where did you get yours? The question was gentle, but it felt like a weight pressing on her chest. She kept her gaze forward. Sir, Afghanistan, 3 years ago. Something flickered in the colonel's eyes, a memory resurfacing. What happened? He asked quietly. She swallowed. An IED took out a convoy. 2 Marines were trapped. I pulled them out. One was unconscious. I didn't see his face clearly. The colonel's breath hitched. Not enough for the recruits to notice, but enough that Maya, standing inches away, sensed it. I woke up in a field hospital, he said, voice low. They told me a sergeant dragged me out before the vehicle exploded. They said she vanished before I regained consciousness. The world stopped. The recruits leaned in. Maya didn't speak. Reeves exhaled, slow, heavy, understanding dawning on him. It was you, he whispered. The hangar was silent enough to hear the metal tools vibrating. You saved my life. Maya didn't move. She simply nodded once, her jaw tight with emotion she tried hard to bury. Dalton looked like he wanted to sink into the concrete. The colonel straightened, his voice now booming with a force that shook every corner of the hangar. From this moment on, every Marine in this room will treat Sergeant Torres with the respect she earned long before any of you set foot in uniform. The recruits snapped to attention, shame and awe mixing on their faces. But the colonel wasn't done. He turned to Maya. You carried me out of fire. Today, I stand because of you. If anyone here doubts your strength, they answer to me. The words hit Maya harder than the explosion that gave her the tattoo. For the first time in years, she felt her chest loosen. Felt the weight lift. Reeves placed the jacket back on his arm. You're not alone anymore, Sergeant. Maya blinked, holding back tears. Thank you, sir. The colonel nodded once. And as he walked away, every Marine straightened their posture, their eyes following Maya. Not with mockery, not with judgment, but with respect earned in ways they could now finally understand. That day, the tattoo they laughed at became the symbol that taught them the lesson of their lives. Never judge a warrior by the scars you do not understand.